Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today, we'll be talking about the economic outlook of Pakistan. As we all know, that the government had a very tough time during the first 13-14 months since they took charge. Things were not that great. When we talk about the current account deficit, that was primarily the major problem. So the case was with the stock market, capital markets in general. Looking at the debt management or debt servicing, that was a huge challenge at the same time. The interest rates were pretty high, and currently they're hovering around 13.5. That's pretty high as well. But there was this very interesting, I would say, press conference of our finance minister, Dr. Abdul Hafeez Shaikh, yesterday also, in which he in fact threw light on the major economic indicators of Pakistan, where he mentioned very categorically that the stock market is one of the best performing stock markets in the world, and it has crossed the 40,000 level of points. I mean, that's a very important psychological barrier of 40,000 which they have achieved, and they believe that this is not a bubble burst. This is the absolute investors' confidence. Whether you talk about the international investor confidence, they've poured in around $1 billion, whereas the domestic customers or the domestic players in our stock market, I mean, they have also shown a lot of interest. Now, on the other hand, I mean, if I read these couple of important points out, in which he said that Pakistan is definitely performing pretty okay, but this is going to take another 1.5 to 2 years that the actual fruit is going to be seen. Now, world's leading financial institutions have given Pakistan their vote of confidence and acknowledged the improvement over the past 5 months in its economic indicators. This was stated by the finance minister. Now, interestingly, this is also important to understand that the Moodys, this is international credit rating agency, they in fact tell you about the standing of a country or any other institution or a company for that matter, that where it is standing at the moment. So they have actually put it to B3, that's stable. That seems to be pretty okay. The second point, it says that the Asian Development Bank, the foremost entity with whom we are linked to economically right now, also recognized the improvement in the performance of Pakistan's economy and declared a 3 billion increase in its program. Then he says Pakistan's exchange rate is now being viewed as stable and people foresee a good return on their investment. He further added that foreign direct investment, FDI, investment made directly in the economy had witnessed a 236%. I'll repeat, it had witnessed a 236% increase compared to last year. As of October, this investment was $650 million US. Our local investors, their confidence can be assessed from the fact that the stock market has crossed 40,000 points. That I earlier mentioned. He further also stated that the State Bank of Pakistan's reserves had also not only remained stable but had risen in the past few months. Hafeez Shaikh further said that our target for non-tax revenues this year is 1,200 billion rupees, which will be met easily. In fact, we should be able to achieve excess funds to the tune of 200 to 300 billion rupees. He further said that the government aims to raise exports so businessmen can earn more. For that, we have provided subsidized electricity and gas rates, with the government bearing difference. So practically, the government is giving them the subsidy and they are pooling in the excess amount. Export sectors were being offered loans at an interest rate lower than the current market rate, that is 13.25%. Now, that is one of the highest at the moment. And then the last point was about the exporters. He said exporters are currently non-taxed while exporting items. When they pay tax, it is refunded. FBR's computerized system refunds up to 100% within 3 days, that is 72 hours. So these are a couple of important areas. But at the end of the day, when people talk about the economy, when a normal person talks about inflation or the price hike in various commodities, whether you talk about the fruits or you talk about the vegetables or other products for that matter. And one important factor that is also important in a way, that I did discuss that on Monday also, that when we look at the overall economy of Pakistan, there's a huge area, and a lot of people believe that if the entire economy of Pakistan is documented, this could be up to $1 trillion US. So you can well imagine you're talking about 2 times more. Currently, if it's 1 rupee, it is actually rupees 3. So you can well imagine the distance. And then on top, when you look at the current account deficit, For the first time, we have witnessed that there is a significant decrease in your imports. There is almost 9.6% increase in the month of November in your exports. So if you look at the difference, I mean, for the first time in this month, a surplus has been shown. So this is something important too. This is going to have its own trickle-down effect, but this is going to take time. It can't be done in a week's time or in a month's time. But eventually, the direction has been set. Now things will move in the right direction. To talk about this, let me introduce you to our panelists we have with us in our studio. On my right is Shakil Rami Saab, Senior Economist. Sir, thank you very much. And we have with us Mohammad Ahmed Saab. Mohammad Ahmed Saab is the President of Islamabad Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And in a little while, we'll also be joined in by Abdul Saab, who's also a Senior Economist and a Strategist. But let's start off from you, Rami Saab. Obviously, you're an economist. I keep receiving your texts and your messages and the links regarding the economy. But sir, looking at these 10 points, what do you make out of it, sir?
First of all, these are the good indicators. So it shows that we start to improve. We have started to move in the right direction, but with some cautions. First of all, so when our stock exchange we are talking about, a lot of money is coming. There are the hot money is coming here. So we have to look at what is the return on that money. So maybe the higher interest rates are contributing toward that. One thing, and second thing, we have to dissect the FDI which is coming to Pakistan, where it is going. Either it is a financial market or it is going to the production market.
If financial market primarily, sir?
Primarily. So in the production, the real benefit would be in the production sector. Because if you have to increase the revenue on the long term, so that is your production sector, your industry, your agriculture. These sectors we have to invest there, and these are a sector which will also create the jobs. Financial market management will not create many jobs, but the industrial sector, agriculture sector, these are the sector which will create jobs. Second thing, I am just wondering, so from where they will get the 1200 billion non-tax revenue?
They say they will not only achieve 1200, they could go up to 1500.
From where they will get? Either they are going to sell out the government properties, are they going to sell some entities, government entities? So that is not sustainable, because it is a one time money. Then what will you do after the 5 years? So like I can quote the example from Argentina crisis in the early 1990s. So when they were advised to go for the privatization, you know, at the end of the day when they were calculating how much they gain, there was a $6.5 billion increase in their debt after all the privatization. Look at the
negative effect.
So they increase at the end, because these are not, you need revenue on the sustainable basis. It is not like that one time you get it and pay back the debt and then say next time what we will do. It is not. So I feel, so if they want to go for a privatization, they have to strike some balance. So how they will be able to sustain the non-tax revenue in the long run? If you want to make the business competitive, that means you have to give some relaxations on tax. But if you don't have any,
giving a lot of relaxation to the exporters.
I just want
look
to
at the refunds within within almost 3 days.
No. In the long run, I am talking about in the long run. You have to give some tax relaxation to the business community and the industrialists. If you don't have any non-tax revenue, from where you will get the more money for the expenditures to increase the tax, either on the consumer or on the industrialist. So in the short, it's just like the street ride. For short term you feel very energetic, but in the long run
there has to be a comprehensive plan to be followed.
You look at developed countries, so especially I just go to China. So the private sector is thriving there. They are increasing, their share in the economy has increased more than the 50%, but still they are sustaining some industries, especially which are important for their job creation or some security reasons or the information technology, and others for revenue generation. Why? Because you need sustainable source of non-tax revenue. Otherwise, in 5 years you give relaxation to the industrialist or business community. In the next 5 years you start to extract the tax from them, because you don't have other sources.
You will squeeze the already squeezed lemon. That's what you do.
So you need to strike a balance where private sector should be given the role they can thrive.
So let's talk about the private sector. Mohammad Ahmed Saab, since you were one of the young and dynamic, I would say, presidents of Islamabad Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and a lot of people look up to youngsters now because they can actually come up with very innovative ideas. Now, when you meet these people, you hold meetings, especially with the businessmen in general. A lot of people have a lot of reservations about the current government. That oh, they have done this. Oh, they have done that, right? But in general, if you look at these papers and you talk to the concerned authorities, you will see that they are primarily focusing on the policy, on the framework, on the system, rather than on the immediate results. That's what I'm looking at. Obviously, we do understand that during the first 6 to 8 months of the current government, things were very tough for them. Everything was going left, right, and center. But now there seems to be some sort of a control, I would say. It might be better maybe in another 18 to 24 months, but still they have set a pattern, they have set a trend. Are you people, when I say you people, means the business community, the industrialists, all those who are connected in these commercial activities, do they have the kind of trust that should be there with the current government, sir?
Okay. Thank you, first of all, sir. And I think let me just start by praising the government, the various first initiatives which they have taken, the efforts which they have done for ease of doing business, and now getting this negative outlook of the Moody from negative outlook to become a stable. So things are going into right direction. The collective effort of the government is going, and we can see there is somehow a streamline which we can focus. The government is putting our efforts, but this is the very first target which they have met. This is not the success. Moody's, no doubt, it is world-renowned credit rating agencies. We have been seeing this in the past. Rating agencies have been rating Pakistan. First 3 months, the rate negative. Further down, the further second 6 months. Next quarter or upcoming quarter, the rate again becomes stable, then positive. These are just rating agencies. They rate according to see the outlook of Pakistan. But we, being the business community who are actually dealing on a daily basis, we are the affectees who are dealing with the problems.
Sir, the rating agencies, how authentic is their assessment? Because I'll just give you one example. 2008 recession, right, sir? Lehman Brothers, for that matter, was rated as a triple A.
That is the biggest example we have.
And the next morning, they went bankrupt.
So this is the biggest example.
Gold.
So
Enron.
So this is the biggest example you have in front. You just rightly so. I mean, Lehman Brothers is one of the biggest example we have in front of us. So when we talk about economy of Pakistan or any country, these rating agencies.
Ferguson was another one, if
Ferguson,
you remember.
Yeah. These rating agencies give direction and give positive image of perception of the Pakistan of any other country, whoever they rate. So as far as talking about the Pakistan, they have given the perception that yes, it has become, the economy has become stable, and it is going to move towards a positivity. Jumping of the stock exchange, up to 40,000, reaching a target of the 40,000 points. These are not the measures to identify that businessman is doing their working, is the business is going smooth.
The minister says this shows and reflects the absolute trust of the domestic as well as international investor in Pakistan.
Okay, so in this particular Moody's report, there is a further few more things which we need to address. This fiscal growth they have addressed is going to be slowed down because we do not have any sort of measures to have the collection of the revenue. We do not have, this government does not have a preset requisites to to get the collection of the revenue. What is the revenue collection? Either you get it, you extract it from the taxpayers. Second, you collect it from, you get it in the form of foreign direct investments, which, we are very grateful. Our overseas Pakistanis who are very,
remittances are really
it has been increased somehow because we are grateful to them. I mean, for sending such a money, and we are hugely relying on their foreign direct investment, from the money which they send from abroad to Pakistan. Third major factor is export. Why export is not picking up? So the Moody's report says the fiscal growth is going to slow down to 2.2%. Okay, now then we talk. There is another aspect which they have highlighted. We need to draw attention of the government into this. Balance
Moody's
of payment.
says 2.4%, whereas IMF says it's going to be 2.8%.
Okay.
But anyway,
somewhere around this figure. Then there is another aspect we have to look upon. Balance of payment is going good. We appreciate it. But the balance of payment should not be good in terms of, curtailing the imports.
You have curtailed the imports and that has hampered your growth rate.
That has hampered. Why? Because every single industry, apart from agriculture, I think agriculture, obviously fertilizers, again, it is hugely dependent upon the subsidies of the government. They subsidize those,
But unfortunate part is that only if you get the right benefits, majority doesn't.
So, major portion, our industries are hugely relying on import products. The government has, taken a strict measures to curtail the imports. But where is the substitute? We do not have any substitute. Where the production, my company was producing 100%, it has lashed 40%. Straight away lashed. So, outlook, the investors, this foreign direct investment, so far the ministers has said in the last month or the previous month, they have been attained somehow the other $1 billion into has been injected into the economy. Nowhere in the world you are getting the revenue of 13.2% over the investment. This is the, how shall I explain it? This is the only country in the world who is giving.
Plus, I fail to understand another point. Now, the minister also said that the rate is 13.25%, but we are giving loans to the exporters at a much lower interest rate. How do you manage that point, sir?
So explain, by them giving this favor, the CIBOR rate is 13.2%, 13.25% to any normal, whether it is export-oriented units or not. You're giving incentive to export-oriented units. You're giving them leverage. By the way, they're not giving such a big incentives to those, those units in terms of CIBOR rates. It is only going to be beneficial of what, 2-3%. But how they are going to produce things when they are hugely relying on the imports? Where the raw material is going to come out from? Eventually, product is not competitive from your neighboring countries. Your product is not competitive in your neighboring countries. You cannot compete.
Price-wise, quality-wise, placing-wise, promotion-wise, everything is important.
There are many factors. If I start explaining it, I'll go long and on in this particular debate.
Now, to talking about the current account deficit, sir, the government has said that the month of November was great. That was the first time actually after many years, many months, that there is a surplus. We have shown a significant growth in the imports and there's a significant decline in the imports. And obviously that is hampering your growth because new machinery, whatever is coming in, whether it's about the textile or other areas, it's not that productive. And it has slowed down the growth rate. Inflation is going up, still is in the double digits, sir. And that is the primary problem of the common man, right? Looking at the inflation, look at the current account deficit. We do understand that that should be taken care of because we really lack dollars. We are seeking for dollars at the moment. This formula, sir, I don't think they can continue with the same formula. Maybe for the next 6 months or maybe for another 8 months to 9 months, it's great. But in the long run, you have to have a growth-oriented policy, sir, because those digits matter the most. They will create the jobs, they will increase the revenue, and at the end of the day, they'll do so many things, which indirectly is going to be very beneficial for a Pakistani, sir.
Look, if you talk about the growth rate, we cannot only blame this government. In a global scenario, the growth rate is declining. If you look at the IMF projections, it's around about 3% growth rate for the globe, and it says that they're still feeling like that it can come further down because the productivity and production has gone bad. There are a number of factors.
For example, so I'll just give one example. You were telling me that you were in Turkey a few days back, right? I was reading an article in which they said that Turkey, initially they thought it's going to go into recession, but now Turkey has recovered on the track of growth again.
So, but the growth levels which we are just trying to foresee right now, it's not possible. The global economy is on a decline right now. Definitely, you are linked to the global economy if you have to export. Not in case of Pakistan. You can look even at Iran. So there are protesters going on because there was some problem apart from another sanctions.
Petroleum prices primarily.
Yellow West in France, Chile. So number of countries you can give the example. So worldwide phenomena growth is going down. But the real problem is, the problem, When they say the Modi has improved, in 2000, when you give an example, when they say they were testified in the Senate of US, do you know what they said? They said, oh, we are only perception organization. We don't ask people to follow us. This is on record in their their statement in their Senate.
But you know, this is how it works.
So that's what I'm saying.
You
One thing-
create perceptions and then you create the mindset, you control the behavior, then you let people do what you want them to do.
So do one thing, second thing. So where is you're talking about the current account deficit. Our problem is our growth rate is basically on the production. Oh, sorry, on the consumption. We are our growth rate is not dependent on production. That is a huge mistake. I think government has to look into that. So if we talk about the barriers on the import, there are certain commodities which are the consumptive commodities. We are not producing them, but the government is giving some relaxation on the intermediate raw material, number of intermediate raw material. That is good one. On the intermediate raw material, there should be concessions, but on the consumptive, you have to control it, because our major problem for the last 72 years is that our GDP growth rate is dependent on the consumption. We are not expanding our industry. If we have to expand our industry, we need to go for a relaxation on the intermediate.
The kind of edge you had earlier in 80s and 90s, even during the first, I would say, 5-7 years of this century. What I wanted to ask you, sir, looking at the overall system of Pakistan, looking at the population, looking at the advantages you have, looking at the disadvantages or the threats you have as far as economy, do you think, sir, look at Bangladesh, look at the way they have captured the market share. If somebody is expanding and capturing, somebody is losing at the same time. And in general, it is said and believed in marketing terms that if you lose a customer, you would require 8 times more effort and money to bring him back rather to have a new customer. Now, my point is that why are we still seeking access to US markets or to European Union? Why not to go after the rest of the world, sir? And you're still stuck at 22 billion of export. What is that supposed to mean, sir? Look at India. Look at Bangladesh, $38 billion worth of export only in textiles, second largest textile setup in the world after China.
Look, we cannot compare Pakistan with Bangladesh. The reason is they are LDC. And LDC countries.
So they have that edge, I understand.
They have that edge.
Least developed.
Least developed country.
Yeah.
There are so many relaxations on their tariffs. So in some countries, the tariff for them is 0%. So we cannot compete there. But we have to come to the real problem. So we need to move on from the consumption behavior to the production behavior. And for that purpose, our industrialists have to be given some relaxation in the initial years, so they can invest. And for that purpose, you have to create new markets. For example, Central Asia is a huge market. What you are doing on that to capture that? In the last few days, the government has taken a very good step. They have called for a conference for the African countries, so to increase trade with the African countries. So that is a good step. We have to move on that.
I still remember you used to send a lot of rice to Kenya. We used to get a lot of tea from Kenya. I'm just giving. Kenya is the gateway, eastern gateway to Africa, right? Now just give me one example. And then there were issues regarding the quality of the product, the pricing, and there were so many other issues, and they practically stopped taking rice from you. What I'm saying is, don't you think ethics are also important, sir? It's not only the deals and the number game or the writing on the paper, it's primarily...
Ethics is the basic thing. Ethics is the basic, trust of the customer is a basic thing. And you look that way.
And you lost that because you couldn't provide them on time, you couldn't provide them on the right price. There's so many other factors which are involved which mean a lot because international competition is growing with each passing day.
I give you 2 examples. First of all, so Pakistan was exporting a pink salt to India, and they were exporting it to the European Union.
Himalayan salt.
Look at the difference between the price. On what rate Pakistan was exporting and what rate India was exporting. One thing. Second thing, China gave us the relaxation to export them meat and some other food commodities. But for meat, we have to meet the standards of China. And China has established 10 different laboratories in Pakistan to help us out so we can meet their standards. So even if your closest friend, they will not compromise on the standards.
Why should they, sir?
Nobody. But we are expecting...
Nobody is a friend. It's all about the interest.
Interest, no, not an interest, but if they want to help, really want to help. But you have to
You
match.
lost your market share as far as your sea food is concerned, sir. We have the best prawns, the best fish. They used to go
So
to China,
we
Europe, Japan for that matter. Nobody's taking, we never had. The
basmati
facilities were
rice.
never even built on that. Sir, if you allow me, I was just told that we've been joined in by the former Secretary Finance, Mr. Waqar Masood Khan Saab. Sir, thank you very much for taking out your time and talking to PTV World, sir. Masood Saab.
Welcome.
Sir, thank you very much once again. Now, sir, since we are talking about the economy of Pakistan, I'm sure you must have heard what Dr. Hafeez Shaikh had to say yesterday. He has painted a very nice picture of Pakistan. He says that there are problems, there are issues currently, but we'll be able to take care of them. And he pointed out that look at the stock market, how the stock market is. I mean, this this bullish trend isn't coming to an end. It's not getting fatigued either. So he says that's a great sign. He says that we'll be able to achieve the targets set as far as the non-tax revenues are concerned. Our exports are increasing, the imports are decreasing. This is the first month of November where we have seen and witnessed a very positive surplus point. Then he says the Asian Development Bank and other, for example, IMF, they've all in fact supported Pakistan. Further mentioning that the credit rating agencies, they have improved the rating of Pakistan. I mean, so many areas. Do you think, sir, this is going to have a direct impact or will have an impact in, let's say, 6 to 9 months from now, sir?
True. I think if we remain on course and we continue to show the restraint which has been shown, um, uh, 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 the stability is clearly visible in almost every area. But as the finance minister himself has acknowledged that there are challenges. And the challenges that remain is that, look, we have considerable loss in production, both in industrial sector as well as in agriculture. Today, the numbers of dispatches for cement have been released, very encouraging, about 5%. It was negative. Um, if that translates into automobiles, iron and steel, I think, or and petroleum, then uh, one can begin to talk about the possibility of growth emerging. Growth is not there at the moment, and frankly, not having growth and having such high inflation, it's a great burden on ordinary people. Their incomes are down. Their uh, real disposable incomes are down, and they are feeling the pinch on because of prices. Their budgets are out. That is a challenge, and uh, uh, we should. It is high time that we should not parade and celebrate the current account correction. This is for an economy like Pakistan to grow. The current account deficit has to be there because much of our industry depends on imported raw materials. So if those things will not come, and it depends on imported machinery, so the new investments can take place. And without those things, frankly, the growth, the investment in growth and jobs, those will remain elusive. And the IMF framework is putting a great deal of pressure on us to remain very frugal. That thing has somehow to be relaxed so that the economy begins to grow and the economic activities increase. Uh, I mean, look at the interest rate. The interest rate at 13 and a quarter, you cannot imagine that some investment will take place. There are difficulties for existing borrowers to meet the obligations. So those are the type of things that I don't think are really helpful for the
Masood
goals.
Saab, if you allow me, sir, if you allow me, I have to ask you this question. Now, three very important areas which you have mentioned. Now, to be very exact, the inflation currently, according to certain economists and certain reports, it's hovering around somewhere 12%. 12.2, 11.8. You just talked about the interest rate that is 13.25%, very high. Now, the problem is that the local borrower or the businessman, they would never buy, because looking at the current growth rate and the interest rate, it doesn't make any sense to me, at least, that why would somebody buy at this interest, sir? You can't repay that, because the growth is static. Now, inflation over, I mean, inflation is almost the same as your interest rate currently, sir. And then looking at the growth rate, according to certain agencies, it's 2.4, some say it's 2.2, some say it's 2.6. Let's say it's 2.5. So what should be the magic formula to look after these, sir, so that the inflation goes down, growth rate goes up, people have enough money to sort of uh, put it in their businesses, sir?
Well, Rahman sahab, let's just look at what the inflation. It's around 12.7%, but where is it emanating from? The inflation is emanating from the food supplies, and the
Primarily, yes.
minister has admitted that food supplies are down because of poor weather, and they are down because we have put a ban on imports from India. Well, with those things, what has interest rate doing with those higher prices? Do people borrow to make purchases of groceries and vegetables and other pulses and wheat and rice? I mean, you look. I mean, first of all, there is no magic formula for inflation and interest rate relationship. One has to be very sensible in terms of uh, charting a course where, if you are concerned with inflation, you should also be concerned by not withdrawing all the money from the system and completely become a reason for evaporating the demand. Now, today, what's happening? I mean, have we not made enough correction on our external side? Have we not made enough correction on the fiscal side? They are celebrating that. So if those things have done, now open up your arms, allow people to import their raw materials,
So
allow
primarily
people
there has
to
to be
import.
some sort of relaxation on the imported items. Now, sir, remember there was this time, sir, where we used to hear very often about these treasury bonds, that the State Bank has floated the treasury bonds, and I mean, if there is excess money, excess liquidity in the market, so you can take some. How do you see that, sir? We haven't been hearing anything about those. And what about the bonds which are supposed to be matured by now, sir? Pakistan bonds, if I'm not wrong.
देखिए, I commend you for asking that question. That again is a sore point in this whole economic analysis. Um, First of all, this has never happened in this country that $1 billion worth of treasury bills have been sold. And this is not a money. If on the basis of that we have built reserves, nobody should be relaxed. Nobody should be proud of that. Okay, I mean, there is no dearth of people to buy T-bills and other government securities. If we wanted the foreign investment, it must have come in the form of uh, 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 bonds and sukuks, and two bonds and sukuks, $1 billion each, matured in 2014 in April and November, and the money that we borrowed from our friends, we used them to pay it off. So this is not a very good strategy. We should have gone by now. I mean, the PTI government is in 15th month. It is in the 16th month of its tenure, and it has not found it appropriate to go and launch a Eurobond, and now that there is a rating improvement, uh, even more a reason that you should quickly go to the market and bring 2, 3, 4 billion dollars. I'm sure Pakistan, under the umbrella of an IMF program, will attract that kind of money. And
Yeah.
then you wouldn't have to worry that tomorrow the T-bills brought by foreigners will
All right.
be dumped and they will take your dollar back.
That makes a lot of sense, sir. But anyway, thank you very much, Azusa, for your comments. Now, so going on to you, I mean, very clearly explained. I think this man knows the trick of the trade, and he's been there in that field for such a long time. And he's rightly pointed out that when you talk about your imports for that matter, sir, I mean, your machinery and so many other factors, the prices, the tax returns, and the rate, I mean, there's so many other areas that it needs to be looked into, that if you really want to enhance your growth, primarily that is not going to hamper your interest rate or other related issues for that matter. But 13.25 is pretty high, and at the same time, when you look at the return from various, whosoever is giving you the revenues in the form of taxes are being squeezed more. Look at the corporate tax for that matter, sir. Look at what is happening in the agriculture side, or for that matter, the services, retail sector, middleman, 1% of the total. For God's sake, that doesn't make sense to me. Agriculture, less than 1%? How can you document that? That's all about your undocumented economy. And the only thing which is visible, keep squeezing it more, your manufacturing, and this is the primary reason. Sir.
So, there's one thing which he defined himself, elaborated it very well. The T-bills, the $1 billion which Pakistan has got, it's only within Pakistan till the time this interest rate is up to the mark of 13.25%. I want to see when it drops down the very next moment, the due course of the time of the 3 months, it will be wiped out, which so far we are getting happy. We should not celebrate it. I again rightly saw that the efforts which the government is doing is no doubt it's appreciable. We appreciate that, but we need to have a clear direction where we have to go. We do not. We talk about giving incentives to the industries. Why to give incentive to industries? Where is your research? You talk about Bangladesh. What Bangladesh is known for now? It is known right now. It is known for only one thing: textile.
Oh yes, indeed. They've mastered the art.
Sir, they are focused on one thing. Where is our research? In Ministry of Commerce, I want to know where is the Research and Development Center? What is the major aspect? That's part where we need to focus to bring back the investment into this country in terms of foreign direct investment.
We haven't been hearing much about the monetary policy, the fiscal policy, the trade policy, the agriculture policy, the textile policy. There were a billion policies at least, if you remember, sir.
So look, when I talk about...
And because they don't redo it every year, because they want that there should be consistency for at least 4 to 5 years.
So all what businessman wants is a clear direction, a clear fiscal policy or monetary policy for 5 years, 3 years. We nothing we can ask for. There is one thing which businessman is needing at this point in time is a clear direction. If I start my investment today, where I'll be standing after 3 years or 5 years, whatever it is. Don't give us such a long projection. Just give us at least 1 year projection. By the time I do my investment today, end of this the very first month, I get to know before I even get into my production. I know there is a price 30%. Price hike in my gas.
You can't compete. I mean, that's a perfect recipe for disaster.
So my humble suggestion from this platform to the government, we should, if we talk about this industrialization, we have special economic zones. You look at the position of special economic zones.
We've been hearing about them for the last 30 years.
So now let me ask you one question here.
That was for 5, 6 years during the CPEC.
Ramesh sir, please correct me.
One in Viristan, one in Karachi, one in Gwadar, one in Hattar. God knows where those are.
Please correct me, Ramesh sir, if I am wrong. There are so many special economic zones. Out of how many? The economic zones are fully functional?
Not even one.
So where it is? Why are you giving incentives? Okay, for example, if I now being very hungry and being businessman is after the money wherever I get money from. I tend to go and make my investment there. If I decide to go to a special economic zone, I will minimum take 3 years or 2 years to come into production. Would that
so that is going to be consistent cost, and then at a break even another similar time maybe?
Can this country afford 2 years? So we need to take strict measures, urgent measures to promote our export. Our export can be promoted.
That is the backbone, sir.
So what is that target?
Simple as that.
Only the service target. service sector, we need to highlight the service sector to bring back the investment into this country. IT sector is one of the major emerging
Our
sector.
Prime Minister said that this year, uh, year, during the budget, I think he was giving an interview after the budget, that he said that $4 billion worth of export in IT sector. And I fail to understand what is happening on that front, because $4 billion into something new.
That is the potential, but
the
we are
future is
getting
all
1
about
billion.
applications. Look at Google. Look at
So
these.
we can do wonders.
And plus, sir, one quick comment. I mean, that is about the small and medium enterprises, SMEs. Totally neglected, no policy for them yet, sir. And that could have been
There
the
are policies,
jump
but-
start for your export. You haven't done much. And then there is another problem, sir. You not only forget about that, we always encourage that private sector should come in and should always persuade our youngsters who want to have a job that rather to have a job, become an entrepreneur, start. So that conducive environment that poor chap is looking for is not available here.
So first I will start from an example from India. So when Narasimha Rao he left the government, so Vajpayee came into the power. So Vajpayee continued the reforms of Narasimha Rao. That gave a huge boost to confidence of the private sector. And you look at the progress during that 10 years of, 5 years of Vajpayee, and then later on, Manmohan Singh continued.
Consistency of policy.
Continue from
Manmohan
there.
Singh was the architect, was the founding father of the financial reforms in India.
That's what I'm saying. After that, when Modi came to the power, he is giving shock therapy to the economy. What is happening with them? A growing economy came down. So consistency is a key.
That is.
Our politicians, when
All right.
talk about the democracy, you need to talk about the consistency in their economic reforms. Second thing, SMEs are the basic things which lay the foundation for everything. Look at China, more than 60% their industry is SME. Look at Germany, they're more
Japan, Germany, Holland, UK, you name
60%,
it.
and 60% industry is for Germany is more than 60% is by SMEs. And what we are doing that?
You're thinking.
Not thinking. The problem that we have to move. I just wanted to ask Waqar Masood Sahab if he was there. So when the Sukuk bond was issued, who was the finance secretary? So who is managing this country and who is taking ownership of this country? That is a problem.
That's $1 million question, but
So after,
we'll
for how long you have to rely on selling your bonds, bringing back the investment into this country? How long this old methodology phenomena will continue?
I mean, you can bring in your black money into Pakistan.
And
you
after
convert
3
it
years
into
it will
white
go
money,
out.
pay
The
5%
maturity
tax,
of the
right,
bonds.
sir?
Look,
And you're done.
Look, we have to facilitate private sector, but we don't have to give the whole economy in the hands of the private sector.
Well, sir, there has to be a mechanism, there has to be a formula. And all these countries, look at countries like Argentina, that their peso was depreciated by 32% in one day. But they're recovering,
I'm
they're working.
feeling about-
Look at Greece. Look at Venezuela, for that matter, a country which is the fifth largest producer of oil.
we
So-
can do wonders. I am assuring you, that we businessmen, we can do wonders. All we need is consistency in the policy.
I think
I
that
know
that
where
holds
we're
the
going.
key, sir. Anyway.
We need to take this forward. Hope the government listens to us. and understands.
National Development Council is a good step.
Well,
I think
let's see,
that
let's
is
see. Sir.
far
Anyway,
better than-
Ramesh sir, thank you very much. Mahmoud Anwar sir, thank you so much. Sir. That's all we have for this hour. I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz.
Sitar is a plucked string instrument used in Pakistani classical music. The instrument flourished under the Mughal Empire. Sitar is named after a Persian word, setar, meaning three strings. It derives its distinctive timbre and resonance from sympathetic strings, bridge design, a long hollow neck, and a gourd-shaped resonance chamber. There are many popular modern styles of sitar, offered in a variety of substyles and decorative patterns.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. You're watching PTV World, and with the top stories at 9, this is Umar Butt. Prime Minister Imran Khan expresses the commitment to bring into use the unutilized properties worth billions of rupees in a productive manner for the welfare of the people. The government and the opposition agreed to appoint Chief Election Commissioner and members of the Election Commission simultaneously. Parliamentary committee to meet again after 1 week to finalize the names. Prime Minister Imran Khan constitutes a Cabinet's committee to address matters pertaining to legislation. Federal Law Minister Farooq Naseem will head the committee. The government will welcome the opposition leaders' input and suggestions on the Kashmir issue. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says Pakistan has effectively internationalized the Kashmir issue and has put India on the back foot at many international fora, including the United Nations.